Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. All right, dog days of summer. We can't stand them. There's nothing to talk about in basketball within reason. You start making up stuff to talk about. At this point, the last I heard was Jaylen Brown was not pleased with the trade rumors that he's been involved in. He had tweeted out, "Shake my head." Now I don't know if I've already said this on camera or not. Yesterday morning was the last time I spoke with you guys, I believe. But this is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, I know he's frustrated with seeing his name in trade rumors. It makes a lot of sense to be in his position and feel like you should be untradeable or should be respected in such a way. But to be honest with you, because of the structuring of his contract, if you want to bring in a guy like KD, by nature, his contract's going to be one of the first ones you look at, him and Jayson Tatum. So it's not personal to him. Anybody who would represent that contract would be in the trade room. And so I think he understands that, but it does become frustrating for the guys. So I think that's what it is that we're looking at there. Is there's a little level of frustration with the business itself, but I don't think it speaks to a lack of understanding necessarily. Truth of the matter is, Jaylen has had, things put out there that represent him. And when I say he has had, rumors have been said that he's not been happy with the Boston Celtics as of late, tweets and stuff like that, and he is like to speak to him not feeling appreciated and things of that nature. So when you consider that, maybe, they're responding to what they're seeing there with intent of saving themselves from watching him having to walk for nothing. He is on a 2-year deal, and like DeJounte Murray's situation, they have to figure out if it's best to just move on before he hits free agency. And for some situations you may feel like that makes sense. Now with his being the fact that he has been in the NBA Finals as of late, I think the Boston Celtics are worried they're just probably going to get outbid when they hit free agency, by a Heat team or a Laker team or somebody like that who's just going to swoop in and just take it, But they have his bird right, so they'd be able to match. But when you start thinking about negotiations and the stress of having to worry about whether or not this guy's going to stay, and then you look at KD's 4-year contract, you kind of feel like that'll help a lot of things out when you acquire it. For one, he's an upgrade as a player, obviously. It's KD. And two, that 4 years makes it so that you don't have to worry about negotiating with him anytime soon. So I think that's what the Boston Celtics are looking at. They're trying to secure themselves the years. If Jaylen Brown said, "Hey, extend me a couple years at an affordable price," I think it's a good chance you don't hear him in trade rumors anymore. I think it's a very good chance the Boston Celtics stop shopping him altogether. So when KD is up for trade, it's different though, because anybody and everybody can be up for trade, and I think that's the responsibility of a player like KD to understand that he has when he requests a trade. You're going to be not only uprooting your own situation, but chances are you're going to be uprooting someone else's who's in a very prominent position, because that's the cost of moving you. So a guy's going to have to leave his team, his situation. Like, that's what it becomes. It's not just as easy or as simple as saying, "Okay, I want to move, so get me out of here." No, the correct way to say that is, "I want to move, so can you please uproot several other people's lives so that I can replace them where they are." So that is that's where you step on toes just by doing something like this. And we think about that, we zero in on it because we do ask for guys to get traded, fired, and things of that nature, but it does uproot your entire life. People got kids, people got things that they're doing, they're building in their circumstances, relationships in these various cities and stuff. Those things go into a place of strain, just from decisions that are made that have nothing to do with basketball in some cases, or have nothing to do with them. Have everything to do with basketball. So it is what it is. I just look at the situation and try to give some respect to that. But all in all, as we look at Jaylen Brown's situation, I think it's 50-50, honestly. I think if the Boston Celtics are able to win the KD bidding war, they will they will proceed to pay the price. I think that's where we're at. Um, if you ask me, what they're doing is they are slowly but surely unrevealing. Revealing is the word. All of the trade scenarios that came in at once 2 weeks ago when he announced this. Like, for example, the Boston Celtics, that's just one trade. I'm pretty sure just throw a team out there, the Clippers probably made a phone call too. And they could zero in on what the Clippers would have to give up. Then they could focus on how the Clippers are trying to break up their team. You know what I mean? They could do that. You know what I mean? And then next week, instead of the Clippers, maybe it would be the Denver Nuggets. Now you're talking about whether or not the Denver Nuggets are going to move forward with Jamal Murray. And they could spend a whole 3 days on that. And then they'll tell you about another trade scenario that took place that week between them and the Bucks. Now you're wondering if Middleton's going to be staying, if Drew Holiday's on the move. Like they're going to do this to drag it out so that by the end of the summer, you're just filled up with all the information necessary to have kept you thinking about the NBA. So that's how I look at the situation. This is yet another one of those. This trade was thrown at the Nets a week and a half ago. So we're not surprised by the fact that this happened, and I think there's a million other ones that we're going to find out about very soon. And that's what it is, a bidding war, you know what I mean? So with that being said, I would say to Jaylen Brown, you are one of many, many players who have contracts like yours who have probably had their names involved in trade rumors about Kevin Durant. I think all 30 teams have called about Kevin Durant, and if that's the case, that means that the player that represents that amount, which is what, $44 million, is what is going to be negotiated about. Period. So, young players as well. Your name was probably thrown in there, young buddy. You were drafted 2-3 years ago. Last year, yeah, for sure. They would be responsible to involve your name because you are the most attractive trade piece for the Nets to acquire. They're going to want young players, picks, and if not that, then a Hall of Famer level player just like Kevin Durant. So I think Jaylen Brown is somebody who, we talked about the trade last night. I didn't question whether or not Jaylen Brown was worthy of being traded for KD. I didn't question that. But I think a lot of people are going, why are we stopping it? Jaylen Brown, and they're assuming that it's understood that Jayson Tatum is the greater player. I do believe Jayson Tatum has more value today because I look at him as a player with length, more size, affects the defensive side of the ball in ways that Jaylen Brown won't be able to do, even though Jaylen Brown's some would say he's a more disciplined defender, but the body is capable, you know what I mean, as it pertains to the length. So that's how I look at Jayson Tatum, and the taller player is always going to take the precedent in most cases. It just is what it is. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the more talented, but it just means that because he's bigger, it is what it is. That's just what they're going to value. So 9 out of 10 times with that being the case, I think that's what Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have going there. If Jaylen Brown was 7 feet, then he would be the guy. Simple as that. I think a lot of people look at the situation and say, well, no, Jayson Tatum's more marketable, this, that, and the third. I don't know. Maybe. I think that's a safe bet to say in a lot of cases, but at the end of the day, I don't care about that. As a basketball fan, if I'm looking at the two players, I value Jaylen Brown as a superstar caliber talent on his way to being a superstar, that is. Just like I look at Jayson Tatum as a player who's on his way to being a superstar, and I think they'll probably accomplish a lot more together than they will apart. Trading either one of them for Kevin Durant is sound because Kevin Durant is better than both of them, but you got to take into account their age. And you got to take into account their various contracts. Jayson Tatum's situation, he's on contract for a lot longer. I think if his deal is like 4 years, I believe, right now, and Jaylen Brown's at 2. So with that being understood, you have to value it that way too, with Kevin being on a 4-year deal. So you're securing yourself as much basketball at a high level as humanly possible. And even though Jayson is young, Jaylen being on 2 years young doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have him until he's 36 years old. As Nick Wright said this morning, no, you're only guaranteed to have him for the duration of that contract. Then he'll take his young self somewhere else, and he'll be young for someone else. And so when you look at it that way, it's like, all right, how can I just guarantee the 4 year of that player? And so that's the logic, man. That's why you do it if you're the Boston Celtics. Do I want to give up Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown, or Marcus Smart and Jayson Tatum? That's when it becomes a different conversation, because you look at Marcus Smart and he's at 4 years himself. So at that point, you start wondering how much talent you're actually giving up versus what you're getting back for the length of the years. Love Kevin Durant and what he could bring to the table, but are we projecting forward that he will be the same guy that he was in OKC and in Golden State? Because if that's the case, of course, throw in whatever you need to. But if you anticipate him slowing down, if you anticipate him needing more help than what you'll be able to give him when you bring him in, if you anticipate having to give up players like Grant Williams, players like Robert Williams, players that play defense for you and that solidify what it is that you do as a team, if that's what you're giving up to bring in Kevin Durant, you understand that Kevin Durant's not going to supplement all that. You're going to need to find some of that in order to help Kevin Durant, Jayson Tatum, or whoever you retain win. And so that's the tricky part if you're the Boston Celtics. How can you make it so that you have enough to supplement what KD is not expected to do going forward, not just for this upcoming season, but can you plan so that you have what he needs over the next course of 4 years? And judging by the price tag, you may be giving away the flexibility that will allow you to bring those things to you. So that's what I'd be wondering about if I'm the Boston Celtics. I know a lot of people think that Robert Williams is an untouchable player in this situation. And trust you me, I value Time Lord like crazy. But his knee injury issues, that knee injury issue that he had at the end of last season, I know he had to get surgery on that. That worries me. It worries me for him long term. Now, I'm not saying that letting him go makes any sense, because you let him go and he continues to be the player that he's been, you look stupid. And you wish to God you didn't do it. That's an all-star level defender, in my opinion. But he's also a guy that I think could be heading in the wrong direction because of knee injuries and the style of play in which he's supposed to play. He's above the rim. He's playing a lot above, above ground. Basically, he's a shot blocker. He's somebody you expect to leap a lot. And if he has knee issues, he's gonna be neutralized to a degree from what it is that he's capable of doing overall for the price tag that he's going to demand for his talent level going forward. I would rather toss him into a deal like that and retain Grant Williams and Marcus Smart, because I trust the bodies of Grant Williams and Marcus Smart more so than I trust the body of Robert Williams. And I know Robert Williams is valued higher than those two right now. And I know you probably really need his shot blocking presence to help KD win. But I'm telling you, between me and you, that can go either way with him. That injury, the injury concerns could teeter either way. And because they could teeter either way, I believe the Boston Celtics can afford to let him go more so than Marcus Smart and Grant Williams combined. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if it comes down to me giving up both of them versus him, I'm giving up him. That's what I'm telling you. Because that need, man, if he were 100% throughout the entire playoffs, maybe the Celtics extend that final series. You know what I mean? He played great throughout. He was toughing it out, like really toughing it out. But that also concerns me because he continued to play on it. That is actually worked into what I'm saying here. I remember Grant Hill. I'm old enough to remember when Grant Hill played in the playoffs against the Heat, got swept, but played on that ankle. The ankle was done after game 2. It was already hurt after game 1. He was completely injured by game 2. He played game 3, and if I'm not mistaken, he played game 4. And the ankle was really, really bad, man. Like, it got to a point where it cost him down the road many years. Now, I don't expect Robert Williams' issues will be anything like that, but that's the worst case scenario when you continue to play on something that's hurt, particularly at a high role like those two played in the playoffs their respective years. So now that Robert's coming back from that injury, I'm guessing he's had the surgery. I'm guessing he's good to go. But my thing is, now he has to get back out there and leap again. Now he's going to be asked to jump every game, play every game because of the responsibilities he's going to have on the Boston Celtics, especially now that you're removing certain defenders from the team. You know, this is a year where Al Horford's getting older. Do you have proper backups for the backup at the center position? And so if all of those things aren't yes, and you're going to leave yourself with Kevin Durant, Robert Williams, Jayson Tatum, you could find yourself in situations where you might not even have Robert Williams, and he's representing so much of your cap based on the level of talent that he's going to be going forward with extensions and things of that nature. Yeah, I know I'm the only person saying this, but I'm shopping him. And I know how much I need his rim protection. Don't get it twisted, but I also understand that I can find rim protection. These kids keep coming in with these 7'8" long arm frames every 5 minutes. And they're not Robert Williams. They're not as good as Time Lord in a lot of cases. But again, it's not about him not being good. I think he's very good. I just also wonder about that knee. And I wonder if I should sell high. If for some reason he can supplement the rest of that price. So that's just how I'm thinking. I don't know. And if I'm the Nets, I have no problem bringing in Tom Lord. Don't get it twisted. Tom Lord and Claxton and Ben Simmons is scary as hell. That's scary as hell. You're not going to score over 100 points on that team ever, even if they don't get no more stars. The defense alone, night-night. Especially if they can find a way to grab Grant Williams too. You get both of them Williams out of there? I don't think that's possible, but again, one has to dream if you're the Nets. So, yeah. I think the Nets have a chance to build something very defensive here with the trade that they make for Kevin Durant. That's what I will say. I don't know how great they're going to be as a team, but defensive, they can be. They have a chance to gather some very good defensive pieces. So, all in all, do I think this trade gets done? About as likely as any other trade gets done. Boston's going to have to win the bidding war. And it's one of 30 teams that's going to be trying to go after it. So, we'll find out what the other trade scenarios are. I wonder what the Kings are willing to give up. I'm wondering if the Rockets were willing to give up some players. I wonder if Portland's still in the mix. Phoenix, are they truly out of it, or would they be willing to throw in somebody that we're not expecting them to throw in? So these type of things, if KD isn't traded before the start of training camp and they start the season running back with everybody, I think the trade scenarios we could see at the deadline could be phenomenal. Much better than the ones we see right now. And I think that's why there's a chance we don't see anything happen, because then you see some of the players who signed now be eligible to be traded then. Then you see some of the guys who have, started their seasons as rookies. Now people start overreacting to what they see and get rid of some of those guys and overreacting to some of their struggles, things of that nature. Maybe maybe Jabari Smith's values plummets or something to start. Maybe they decide, we can move on from him. We're going to move on from KPJ anyway. Why don't we just go get Kevin Durant? Like those type of things I could totally see happening if for some reason the player starts to struggle to start the season. Or vice versa. Maybe somebody's value goes crazy. Maybe somebody steps up and really starts playing well that they weren't expecting to play well. You have another Anthony Simons situation or something. Now suddenly a guy out of nowhere, like Devin Vassell from San Antonio, maybe he has a breakout year or something. Now you can toss him in because he's ascended to stardom, and suddenly he's a piece that you didn't know could be as valuable to make a trade like that. So this is an example. The type of thing I think is possible. If for some reason Kevin isn't traded right away. So, yeah, keep your eyes open for that. And that's pretty much what I got to say, man. I wanted to touch base with you guys. As I said, there ain't a whole lot to talk about, so it's all speculation. And hopefully we can get some news at some point. So that's what I got to say. BDF44. Thank you all for watching.